I created the most fun combat system I've ever made, and immediately I thought, what if I made them fight each other? And this led to some of the most interesting gameplay that I've ever designed, if a little troublesome at times. Howdy, and welcome to Game Endeavor, where I post devlogs with an emphasis on game design and technique. Recently I posted a video on how I made combat fun by upgrading the movement logic of my enemies. Immediately after doing this, I wanted to see what would happen if I made the enemies fight each other. It looked amazing. It was so much fun to watch emergent behavior arise from a few simple rules to create a satisfying experience. I even showcased this during some of my streams and everyone loved it. It was clear to me that this was going to become a major turning point for the development of my game. I took full advantage of this and created pets that you can tame and raise, a party system with unique characters that accompany you on your journey, and even summon creatures if you decide to play as a necromancer or a summoner. But there are a lot of design challenges to consider with this. I have to make it so that the player feels relevant and powerful in the game. Most people do not want to sit back and watch others fight their battles for them, and I needed to make it so that the enemy knows what it can target, which seems pretty straightforward, but resulted in a few interesting behaviors. It's a huge undertaking to add this into my game, but will absolutely be worth it for the amount of customization and wholesome moments it can bring to each and every one of your many playthroughs. The feature that I'm excited for the most is the pet taming and raising, which will allow you to find cute little critters out in the wild and become best friends with them. When I attempted this before in another prototype, the AI was difficult to manage, especially with traps and everything else that it needed to consider. Enemy AI can be a little forgiving because the player won't notice it as much, but as soon as it becomes something that follows you around and you have to take care of it, the frustration of bad AI becomes a real issue. I had almost given up, deciding that pets would follow you around but not really do anything beyond that. But with this new update to my AI, it has allowed me to create pets that can flank enemies that are attacking you, avoid obstacles, and perform various tasks on their own. It's a lot of fun to have a companion with you in battle, one that doesn't steal your thunder, but helps control the flow of combat ever so slightly. To prevent your cute and cuddly little buddy from becoming a star of the show, your enemies will evaluate the entities that they can potentially target and use that to decide who they should go after. Things that they check for are the distance to the target so that nearby entities are more desirable, how much damage that entity has done not only to them but the total damage output, and if the entity is a player, because the player is much more desirable than your little sprout buddy. Not only will your pets be able to fight with you in combat, but throughout your adventure you're going to encounter various enemies fighting each other as well. The Skelly army is an invading force that attacks anything that isn't also a Skelly, and you could potentially find a brute being bullied by several sprouts, assuming there are enough of them. To do this, I needed a way for the AI to know what they are and aren't allowed to attack, otherwise they could end up attacking each other, or in some cases attacking themselves, like genuinely, why are you hitting yourself? I created a faction system that can tell them who they're aligned with and who they're not supposed to be attacking. This isn't like a mage guild in Skyrim, although that is something that I'm considering much later in the game's development. Instead, it only serves this one purpose. I'm simply using bit masking to handle this. This allows me to quickly check multiple factions at one time with a simple bitwise operator. A bit mask is just an integer that uses binary bits as booleans by setting them to 0 if it's false or 1 if it's true. So instead of having a bunch of different booleans and checking each and every single one of them, there's one variable that can be checked with one quick line of code. The mask is rather simple at the moment. It allows me to assign what is friendly, enemy, neutral, and so on, as well as undead, nature, and beast. But I'm only considering the alignment of the character at the moment. Early on in development, I was using them a little more haphazardly, and I encountered odd instances of sprouts attacking other sprouts, and occasionally they would even attack themselves. The depressing bit is that they were also trying to run away from themselves, but I can relate to that. The reason they were doing this is because of the exceptions that I'm adding to enemies so that they can attack other things. For example, sprouts are neutral by default. They won't attempt to attack the player unless provoked. The player, on the other hand, is capable of attacking sprouts because their faction mask allows them to do so. But the same is not true for the sprout. I can't just change the faction mask though, because then they would be able to target anything that shares that same bit as the player. So instead, whenever they're provoked, the player or other attacking entity gets stored in an array that the sprout checks whenever they're searching for a target. The issue here is that somehow, somewhere in the alert logic, they were adding themselves to this list whenever they were in combat with an enemy. That enemy would then send out an alert like, hey, you're attacking me. And then, after the battle was over, they would avenge their friend's death by attacking themselves. It took me a few tries, but I eventually managed to sort everything out. It was a bit tricky because there's a lot of factors to consider in all this, such as if the entity is a pet, a summon entity, or a lot of other things. For example, if you have a sprout and you attack another sprout, your pet sprout has to know that it can attack that sprout. Just chaos. For fun, I made it so that I could cast a spell at an enemy, and then it would have them target anything nearby without question or remorse. This is often known as a frenzy or berserk in other games, and can be used to reduce the amount of enemies that are targeting you specifically. When I first created the spell, I used a piece of cheese as a prototype art, and when I showed it to the Discord community, we joked about how it looked like the player had thrown down a piece of cheese and everyone had started fighting over it. I'm not really interested in being too silly with cheese, but it would be an amusing use of the item, if a little expensive given that cheese is considered to be a valuable item in the game. Enemies fighting each other gives me an interesting explanation to their increase in difficulty as the game progresses. In the comment section of my last video, several people were talking about having the enemies level up as they defeated other enemies. And while this isn't really a feature that I'm interested in due to the unnecessary complexity, it did get me thinking about Brutus Sprouts that have been fighting skellies over the course of the game, and have gotten stronger from their experience in battle. There's a lot that I could do with this, such as having an entire Sprout society with some high-ranking Sprout warriors and generals, and I just love this idea, because this is my goal with Zoe and the Cursed Streamer. I'm crafting a world for you to explore and get immersed in, and I love moments like this. Sprouts have started to become beloved by the community. It seems as though I made them a little too cute, and I've started to hear from several people that they're upset that they'll have to fight them, which is probably going to be an issue going forward because most of the enemies in the game are going to be cute and cuddly, like the fun bun that we developed before I even started doing devlogs. Look at how adorable this guy is. However, I do kinda like the little fellas myself, so I've decided to make them neutral and tameable. As sweet as this is, however, it has kinda thrown a wrench into the game's design. Previously I had decided that pets weren't going to play much of a role in combat, if at all. Truffles was going to accidentally dig up random treasures while rolling around in the mud, accidentally because he has no sense of smell, and the Mimic was going to act as a portable storage container. But now that the Sprouts are pets, they have become the first pet with combat capabilities. But that's not the main thing about pets. I want them to be personal companions that accompany you on your journey. You'll be able to find them out in the wild, discover the types of food that they enjoy, and feed them and tame them to keep them happy. I want you to bond with these creatures and become attached to your little companions. To do this, pets have skills that you can help them improve, tricks that you can teach them, as well as a happiness level that you can increase by playing with them, petting them, and giving them new toys. The more happy a pet is, the more effective they become. They can gain bonuses like buffs, which make them more beneficial even in combat. Pets are just meant to be adorable little critters though. If you want powerful creatures, then that's where summoned entities come in. In Zoe and the Cursed Streamer, you can play as a Necromancer or a Summoner, where you'll be able to summon powerful beings with various abilities. The demo already features a spell that allows you to summon your own skelly minion to fight with you, and as the game progresses, you'll gain access to more powerful spells that summon even greater creatures. To help differentiate your summoned minions against the visually identical enemies that you'll be fighting against, I use the shader that modifies the outline color of the minion so that it pulsates purple. Purple is the designated color of magic in Zoe and the Cursed Streamer, so it symbolizes that this minion is being summoned by the use of magical power. The Necromancer specialization will be able to summon skelly minions which mindlessly fight by your side, but the Summoner specialization focuses more on the bond between a summoner and their minion. With this class, you'll be able to interact with the bound entity and have it grow more powerful over time. I got this idea thanks to several comments on the previous video where I joked about being able to pet skellies after stunning them, and after mentioning that I was planning to make a summoner class, several people asked if I had planned to allow you to pet the summoned creatures, and I love the idea of being able to bond with the summoned entity and have it grow with you instead of it being just some disposable creature. We created 2 of these summoned familiars in Tuesday's livestream and it was so much fun. We designed these from scratch so it was great to do together with the community. We made the Void Kitty, which started out as a demon dog and eventually became a joke about people's displeasure of my use of pure black and white. I'm really gonna piss people off with this one. And then we created a royal minion which treats you like its familiar and has its own minions that fly around, debuffing people with the glittered status effect, which raises their visibility, making it harder to sneak, and will spread to everything that they touch. Zoe and the Cursed Streamer is primarily a role-playing game, and I really wanted to implement the party members that also fight by your side. 2 such party members are Claire, the sweet and innocent cleric, and Mad Catter, the whimsical talking cat. Claire was orphaned as a child and discovered by the village elder who took her in and raised her. Under his guidance, she learned how to harness the power of her magical essence and use it to aid the village in various ways, ensuring that skellies don't just wander in. The Mad Catter immediately became a fan favorite of the community and seems to be loved in the demo as well. He's a powerful magical entity that you encounter in the caves. He's unpredictable, unreliable, unhelpful, and that's what makes him so much fun. He loves joking around and making 6 wall breaks. In the demo, he doesn't join your party, and I'm not absolutely certain that he will, at least not at first, perhaps as a New Game Plus thing. But he will accompany you throughout your adventure as a reoccurring character. If he does join your party though, then you can likely expect some shenanigans to ensue. He's not intended to be played seriously. For example, during combat, he may transmute a weaker entity into an elite version just for a laugh. His purpose would be to introduce a bit of chaos into your playthrough, which will make for some fun, lighthearted moments. Zoe and the Cursed Dreamer is now live on Kickstarter. There's a demo you can play right now if you want to experience some of the features that I've mentioned in this video and previous devlogs. And if you enjoyed the game, to consider backing the project. You can get it at a discounted price, or get alpha builds of the game as I'm developing it and experience it before everyone else. As well as Teddy's diary, which will have some of his secrets and cooking recipes. Thank you to everyone that has backed the project already, and I will see you in the next devlog.